Now, we would like to invite the CEO of Technopack Industries to kindly come up on the stage to share with us his views on Pakistan automobile industry, the next leap. Ladies and gentlemen, please extend a very warm welcome to Mr. Aamir Allawala.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Honorable Chief Guest, Nobuhiro Yamamoto-san, Chairman IMC Ali S. Habib-san, distinguished guests from TMC, TMAP, and TTC, a few ladies and lots of gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum. Theodore Roosevelt said, "I believe that the more you know about the past, the better you are prepared for the future." So, ladies and gentlemen, I want to tell the story of a country today which bears close resemblance to our country, Pakistan. This is the story of Indonesia, a country of 240 million people, which has gone through remarkable progress in terms of economic growth and the growth of the automobile industry. So first of all, let me highlight a few similarities between Indonesia and Pakistan. First of all, both the countries are Muslim countries with large populations, Indonesia having 240 million, and we, in the absence of a census for the last 15 years, I would presume we are about 200 million or so. Ethnic diversity, poverty and low level of literacy, income inequality and political instability, disparate geography and separatist movements, ethnic and religious violence, and of course, terrorism. No one can forget the Bali bombings of 2002. And when I went back and tried to find out what was Indonesia like in 1998, I found out that it was the worst affected economy after the Asian financial crisis of 1997, and I tried to prepare a snapshot. The rupiah had crashed from a level of 2,500 rupiah to $1 to a level of 15,000. The industrial output was down by about 13%, and Indonesian economy was seriously being considered as a failed economy, and the resultant consequences that were being foreseen were rising food insecurity. It was on the verge of hyperinflation. The banking system was virtually ineffective, and the corporate sector was weighed down by this loss of demand, exchange rate going drastically lower, and high debt burden. And then I went a few years ahead, and the next period that I wanted to see was between 1999 and 2003, where we saw a gradual recovery from the 1997-1998 Asian financial crisis. The government debt, though, was still very high at 90% of GDP. There were heavy budget and fiscal deficits. Interestingly, the total GDP in the year 2003 was $196 billion US. And by the way, today Pakistan's GDP is roughly between 231 to 240 billion US. The GDP growth was crawling back to around 4%. The inflation and interest rates started to come down to single-digit levels, and there was gradual restoration of investor confidence, primarily due to tough security measures taken by the Indonesian government after the 2002 Bali bombings. And after this, I looked at the next period, which after this consolidation, can we move on? Was the period of rapid growth in Indonesia between 2003 and 2014. Now, what happened was there was continuation in macroeconomic stability. There was reasonable political stability. The growth primarily was driven by domestic demand, which was coming from a large population of 240 million people. The security situation was drastically improved, And there was dramatic rise in foreign direct investment, which you can see from the graph on the right, that foreign investment, which was around $150 million in 2002, of course, this was drastically lower than 1996 because of the financial crisis, but still in 2006, the FDI was 4.9 billion, and then it started rising rapidly to a level of 37 billion US dollars of foreign direct investment in the last year, which was 2014. So this is a snapshot of what happened from 1998 till the last year, and look what it did to the automobile industry and the automobile market in Indonesia. The growth was dramatic, I would say, from 379,000 vehicles in the year 2000 to the last year where they produced almost 1.3 million vehicles. And of course, Toyota is the number one, the Toyota Group is the number one brand in Indonesia. But other than Toyota, several new and Japanese and European and American car makers entered Indonesia because of the scale of this market. And now it has gone to a very interesting level where economies of scale can be achieved. The next one. Now let's compare these two countries in two different space in time. Indonesia in the year 2003 versus Pakistan in the year 2014. So if you look at these two countries in these two different time periods, you would find there are many similarities. Both have large and young population, both have an improving security scenario, both single-digit inflation and interest rates, foreign exchange reserves are rising. The current account deficit is still high. In fact, now it is because of oil prices, it's becoming under control. The GDP growth is accelerating, so are the capital markets. The sovereign rating has improved. The currency is stable, and we are anticipating foreign investment in the coming 3 to 4 years, but there are two factors in which I could not find commonality. One was the auto sector, the increase in car financing. Although we have, at this moment, single-digit interest rates, but still car financing is kind of yet to take off because probably the government is crowding out all the other avenues of financing by the banks. And the other area was, in the sector, the absence of a proper auto policy in Pakistan and this import of used cars, which is creating a lot of confidence crisis amongst the industry stakeholders to invest. Okay, can we have the next one? And then I think one of the key sources for rapid growth of any economy is its ability to attract foreign investment. And I made a comparison of the two countries, how they stood in terms of attracting FDI in these years. In 2002, Indonesia was quite run down, so let's not consider that. But in 2006, Pakistan received foreign direct investment of almost 4.2 billion US dollars, while Indonesia was at about 4.9, roughly neck to neck. But look what happened later. Today, in the last year, 2014, Pakistan got 1.77 billion US dollars worth of foreign investment, and Indonesia was able to attract, because of this last 10 period of continuous growth, almost 37 billion US dollars worth of foreign investment coming primarily from the Japanese companies. The next one, please. So now what is going to change in Pakistan? We have made some comparison between Indonesia in 2003, Pakistan in 2014, but what we feel is about to happen is that somehow the CPEC, the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, which is going to hopefully provide a much-needed boost to infrastructure development in Pakistan, to the stimulation of economic growth by injection of massive liquidity, enhancement of consumer buying power, growth in demand for automobiles, all kinds of transportation equipment. And of course, this translates into a tremendous opportunity for current auto assemblers, the 3 automakers in Pakistan, to be able to take advantage of this upcoming demand and increase in the buying power of the population. The next one. Now, I want to kind of superimpose all of this with some background information about the Pakistan automobile industry. Yes? Now, if we were to look at the auto sector in Pakistan, the passenger car market and the light commercial vehicles, I would say that we can distinctly break it up. The last 25 years, we can break them up into 4 phases. The first phase, which is 1991 to the year 2000, is a stage of stagnated demand, where the markets were hovering around 45,000 to 60,000 vehicles, depressed kind of an environment with regard to the market growth. But then we entered the phase 2, which was the Musharraf era, in which we had reasonably sound macroeconomic management with reasonable liquidity available for consumer financing. And what we saw was, from a level of about 50,000 vehicles, the market went up to around 254,000 vehicles over a period of 6 years, from 2001 until 2007. And then, sadly, just like all good things, that phase ended. And we went into phase 3, which was extremely erratic, with the used cars starting to come in massive numbers. But still, these numbers are total demand, including imports. Regardless of used cars, the total market size was very erratic. And we saw the market drop by almost 60% in 2008, 2009. But then the good part of the next phase, which is the 4th one, I would say, is that we are seeing another surge in the demand for automobiles. Now, how has that happened? You know, we have a large population, and we are just, we were at a level of, let's say, around 170,000 cars last year, and light commercial vehicles. So to go up from that small base is, looking at the size of our potential customers, is not too difficult. So there's a lot of room for growth. Now, after phase 4, is there a next phase? Now, can Pakistan emulate the Indonesian example? In 2015, the forecast is, including imports, the market demand would be 275,000 vehicles. And what we saw in the period of growth in Pakistan from 2001 until 2007, the market grew by leaps and bounds. It's like it just starts to multiply. And same happened in Indonesia. It happens when the environment becomes conducive. So can we expect to reach this magical number of 500,000, which we were hoping to touch in the year 2012? Can we touch it in 2020? That's the question. Next one, please. Now, Pakistan automobile industry is quite unique. We've had very small volumes, as Ali Habib Saab just mentioned. Just 700 Corollas were being made per month in the beginning period of Indus Motors. And even then, there was localization, continuous localization. So what we have developed is a special capability as parts manufacturers to produce all kinds of components. Can we go back? And the result you can see is more than 750 components, parts, and assemblies have been localized in the Corolla 368A project. Now, this is no easy achievement by any standard for a country which is just producing the quantum of cars that we produce. The scale is, model-wise, if you divide it, it's just not there. But this is a very big achievement and shows the capability of the Pakistan parts manufacturing industry. And yes, can we go on? And if you look at the capabilities of IMC's parts suppliers, I mean, from sheet metal pressing to steel forgings to injection molding to rubber molding and extrusion to chrome plating, surface treatment, blow molding, and all kinds of electronic products that are being produced here, we have a certain unique capability, I believe, which we need to harness to move to the next phase of growth in the Pakistan's automobile industry. Next, please. Of course, every road and every objective has its own obstacles and challenges. So it's going to be it looks very sunny and bright, but this road is very bumpy. And what can be the possible impediments that we need to overcome? Next one, please. First of all, I think there are going to be capacity constraints. 2 of the 3 car makers are operating now. IMC, I believe, is more than 100% of capacity. I mean, it's amazing the kind of volumes that have been achieved, but of course, if there's more demand coming, then you can't meet it. Same is the situation with Suzuki today. They're going to produce about 135,000 cars in 2015. So they are also faced with capacity constraints. The only OEM that has some capacity available is Honda, but people want all kinds of cars. And when the demand is going to outstrip supply, we might have a situation which we were facing within 2004, where delivery time started to stretch too much. So that's going to be a very big challenge, and I believe that we should be looking at a moving target. The demand is going to come. It takes 2 years to set up a new plant, or to expand capacities, or to bring in new products. So we need to look at that target 2 years down the road and take action now. The product range needs to be enhanced with the used cars coming in. I mean, if you look at the used cars import data, there are probably 35 or 40 kinds of models coming in. And there's a lot of variety available which people like, because it gives them an opportunity to have a unique car that they want to drive. We have a very limited product range in hatchbacks, in sedans, in SUVs, and we need to look at that side of the supply. And finally, the role of the government. It would have been excellent had the COED been here, because there is a very important element of government's leadership which is missing in terms of Pakistan's auto industry policy. So effectively, we don't have a policy since July of 2012. So we hope that the government finalizes the auto policy soon, and a good policy. And then, of course, we are looking at reasonable protection from FTA imports. And we don't want to be a country where zero-rated imports of FTA goods is encouraged or allowed. And then finally, we need to restrict the import of used cars. And I think a case that needs to be made is that the government revenue from used car imports is not more than the government revenue from a similar car which is produced in Pakistan. And we saw that in your presentation, sir. From Honda Weasel, the revenue of the government is less than a locally produced Civic. So once we are able to raise our level of capacity and increase the product range, we need to go to the government. We need to tell them that it's not a revenue benefit for the government to allow import of used cars. And it causes a lot of damage in terms of industrialization of the country. Next one, please. And this is a final thought. In Indonesia, Toyota Group is number 1 with market share of 58%. In Pakistan, Toyota is number 1 in sales value. However, in terms of, I mean, we are looking as parts suppliers, we are looking at the possibility and the potential for IMC and Toyota to bring in new products and to expand the capacity and to be able to achieve the position of market leadership, not only in terms of the sales value, but also in terms of sales quantities. So there are gaps in the market, and there are opportunities, and I'm sure, I believe Toyota Motor Company launches a new model every week in some part of the world. So I hope that with Yamamoto-san's presence here, we will have the opportunity and the privilege to get more and more Toyota models in different categories to be launched in Pakistan. Most importantly, next one. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.